Hi, everybody. Happy Halloween. Welcome to Breakfast All Day. Matt, Christy, Alonso. Matt's got his Animal House costume. Christy is dressed as the ghost of the Washington Nationals past.
I'm a goddamn champion.
Yes.
That's what I am.
I wish I had a bunch of powdered donuts. You put it in my mouth and then say, see if you can guess what I am now.
Actually, it was mashed potatoes. The powdered
Was it
donuts
mashed? Oh, right.
was a commercial on
Right,
SNL.
right.
And I'm wearing my husband's Diamanda Galache shirt because it was the closest thing I had to spooky, so take it or leave it. Anyway, we're here to talk about Terminator Dark Fate, which is basically the Halloween 2018 of Terminator sequels, and they're pretending that nothing after T2 happened, and I'm okay with that.
Well, yeah, because all the stuff that happened after the whole trilogy of the rest of the would-be yet failed Terminator reboots is not good.
Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation and Terminator Genesis.
Yes.
My main memory of Terminator Salvation is that it came out in 2009 when I was very pregnant, and I just recall like Nicholas like pounding his feet inside of me because it was so noisy and it freaked him out.
And I think a lot of people's main memory of Terminator Salvation is Christian Bale saying that he's professionally done with somebody. That's the movie.
That's the best. Yes.
Yeah, that's when he had that
Sabrina,
rant. Yeah.
Was that the good for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. Yes. Who can forget?
Well, that was better than the actual movie itself.
And there was the TV show that I never watched.
I feel like you're not close enough to the mic or something.
The Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Yeah, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, I had not watched, but I had always heard good things about it.
Okay.
Who is a Terminator aficionado? Who's a Terminator aficionado and wants to describe
who's
it?
a terminologist?
Yeah. Matt, I think you should take this.
You can do it.
Sure. Okay, so this is Terminator Dark Fate. Ignore any of the movies that happened after Judgment Day. This finds, it's, I don't know, what, 20 years later?
It's like soonish.
30, yeah, it's now-ish. And the beginning of the movie, we see that, well, you know what? I'm not going to give it away. What I am going to say is that we still have Terminators going back in time and to eliminate certain people to bring out guarantee the success of a future of terrible AIs. And people are still getting back in time getting sent back in time to stop those Terminators. This time, our Terminator is played by
Gabriel Luna.
Gabriel Luna, sorry. He's played by Gabriel Luna, or it is played by Gabriel Luna, who has some elements of the T-1000, can shade and shape, but then also we see kind of the skeletal structure of
a T-1000 that's been draped over a T-800, basically.
Right. That's what it seems like. I mean,
they can operate
independently. So it's a 2-for-1 deal. And we get a woman sent back in time who is enhanced and can really go toe-to-toe with the Terminator, or so it seems. And, we see Linda Hamilton come back, and violence ensues.
And Arnold is there, too.
And Arnold's there, too.
And Natalia Reyes plays the woman who's now being protected by the future Terminator for reasons that are assumed early on and that are clarified later.
Yeah. So this movie, it's tough to talk about too much about the plot of this without giving too much away, except that the Terminator is after a different person this time.
Right.
What we've seen is that Skynet was successfully taken down, and yet there's something else that is building Terminators and sending them back from the future to take things out. This movie opens up relatively early on. The first scene is kind of shocking, and then we get an early action chase scene that is awesome.
Yes.
The big car chase
is terrific. And there's some good action at the end. The story gets a little goofy, and it's one of those ones that I think you should not, if you really... Unlike some time travel movies, this one that really kind of starts to fall apart with the causality. And look, like we can argue about which ones work and which ones don't because time travel.
I've had that issue since the first Terminator. At some point, you're just kind of like
you just go with it or not.
I liked this one. I thought it was pretty solid. There's been some critics I know who've really complained about what it means for Sarah Connor. Some critics who I have seen. Who I very much respect say that this is not really the woman's movie that some people say it is.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily consider it this great woman's movie. I just thought it's a solid action movie. I don't know that it's as meaningful. Not that Judgment Day or Terminator are particularly deep, but they're both really tight, relatively seamless movies. And for what they're trying to do, they do it really well. This one feels a lot like a greatest hits. It almost feels like
it's fan service.
There's a lot of fan service, and it feels like kind of the Force Awakens to the original Star Wars trilogy.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that there are like pieces of dialogue, there are images and sequences and pieces of dialogue that we hear again here, which don't have the warm, nostalgic hilarity that I think they're aiming for. Like, at least the screening that I went to, a packed screening in Burbank at the IMAX theater on a Saturday night, there were groans. Ooh. Active groans when you hear certain lines that are iconic lines. It is exciting here and there. The technology is the best part of it. It is, as much as T2 was groundbreaking in its day in 1991 when it came out, this, it builds on that, and it is very cool that he is even more indestructible, and he can like throw out his wrist and like a spear comes out, or a gun, or a sledgehammer, or whatever thing he needs. It's cool that he can like work in tandem with his skeletal self. But eventually, the complete indestructibility of this creature, the Rev 9, becomes really boring and really repetitive and really tedious, and the whole film is just exhausting because it exists at this like one note of the same kind of breathless, frantic intensity the entire time that I just found like just numbing after a while. And then when they do slow down for a little bit, like when Linda Hamilton and all of the other women meet up with Arnold. This is not a spoiler. We know that Arnold exists in this world. You cannot have this kind of reboot without Arnold.
You can't have any of them.
And then he's popped up somewhere.
It just becomes so corny and jokey. Like what he's been up to is kind of good for a chuckle, but then like the banter is not as snappy as they think it is, and like it's just corny and goofy.
It's written by the guys who wrote the Deadpool movies, so I think there's an expectation that it's going to be wittier than it is. I would love to hear your take about the feminism of this movie, because I think in some aspects they dropped the ball in terms of there's a difference between a male screenwriter's idea of what a strong female character is versus when a woman writes one, I think, very frequently. On the same token, however, I really love this iteration of Sarah Connor just because I don't feel like we've ever seen a character like this in an action movie who is an older woman who is as much of a badass and a sage the way an older male character would be.
Laurie Strode. It's not as horror.
Yes,
but still, Jamie Lee Curtis gets the benefit of that.
Also,
too.
But Laurie Strode, like, there's all this conversation about is she crazy or not, and I think that like this is a version where she's allowed to be obsessed with this thing and has a good reason to, and no one questions it. If anything, it's like, what laws have you broken, but not are you nuts?
Right, and she's still kind of like, and there's a line where she mentions like being drunk all the time, like like drinking yourself to sleep.
I remember. I'll say it. She says like, I hunt Terminators and I drink till I black out, and she's stuck with really clunky expository dialogue like that. Like she deserves better in explaining her badassery, I think.
Yeah, I mean, she's written like a John McClane in his later years, right? Like a lot of the other action heroes,
grizzled, world weary,
hard drinking.
And it's a cliche, but it's a cliche when it's a man. I think it's a little fresh when it's a woman, just because it's unusual. Just because I think women after a certain age are supposed to be invisible from the screen anyway, much less like wizened and weathered and beaten down by life, but still like fighting. Where we take it for granted that like a Harrison Ford or somebody is going to just like be that guy. Like we have that slot. I think that slot for women it's unusual. Is at least relatively new.
Right. So, it's interesting that she's collecting guns, not baskets.
I don't get that.
Like old women get all those wicker baskets and.
Wow, that was a stretch.
I don't get that. I don't own any baskets. Anyway, so to answer your question, my friend Alonso, superficially seems like the sort of like feminist manifesto, like the three of us can band together and we can save the world and we can keep the machines from rising up again and we can protect this person. But then ultimately, because it is a Terminator movie, all roads lead back to Arnold.
True.
And so eventually, and this is not spoiling anything, they meet up with Arnold, they need his help. This is why they go to him. They still need to be rescued by a man, albeit like an android man, but still he's a male form. He is, the larger than life figure looming over this film and over this franchise ultimately. And so it sort of, as you say, drops the ball in that regard. It could have been more so and does not have enough courage to go there all the way. That's my problem.
It is making an effort to make it more female centric. I mean, and this is a franchise that already gave us Sarah Connor, so it's not like this is new territory. But and we've had female Terminators before, like all that stuff. I think they're really trying to be smarter and create a smarter storyline. But you're right, there is no not having Arnold be a major part of this, and so that is just going to automatically, I think, undercut those efforts.
Also, do you think it's trying to make a statement about anything political with the Mexican character sneaking into the United States?
Well, it was less annoying in this movie than it was in the Rambo movie recently. I thought that was just sort of an acknowledgement of things as they are.
Okay.
And this movie does have some interesting acknowledgement of things as they are. Like in old Terminator movies, the idea of all these people, including children, in cages at the border would have been looked at as a dysfunctional future dystopia, whereas now it's like, welcome to 2019, And so that's kind of interesting. I think in general, whether it's with the politics or whether it's with the action or whatever else, I was in it while I was watching it, and then the further away from it I get, the more I either think twice about things or kind of forget that I saw it. So there's that.
You know what, though? I do appreciate, though, as you say, Matt, that they have just skipped over these three shitty Terminator movies that preceded it, and like the Halloween franchise.
Yes.
And it also kind of makes sense in the larger perspective of this is a franchise that's all about going back in time and messing with the timeline to prevent future tragedies. Right. So the idea that they went back in time, and erased all of these bad Terminator movies kind of makes absolute sense here, that they would do that with their own mythology here. If you're gonna see a Terminator movie, you're gonna see a Terminator movie.
Yeah.
And this is, I will say, the action sequences. We're talking to Sabrina, in case you guys are wondering what's going on here. Sabrina is in here trying to help Dave make brownies. It's not going to end well.
For anyone.
And the action sequences are thrilling. That one chase is very exciting. The whole thing at the end with, I won't say what it is, a big nutty climactic ending thing, which is insane.
Pretty damn good.
Well, you say
it?
All Terminator movies lead to Arnold, but also all Terminator movies lead to a functioning industrial location in which a Terminator can be destroyed.
Yeah. That has to happen.
That
has to happen, yeah.
That's what it takes, right?
And also, I would say, if you're going to see this movie, see it on the big screen. Like it does deliver in a purely like visceral, actiony, big booming sound, cool special effects kind of way. Where if that's what you're there for, then see it, do it upright.
And I like Mackenzie Davis.
Oh, always.
Yeah, I like her a lot.
I like the choices that she makes. To go from Tully last year to this year, she's got a lot of range and can do it all.
Go back and see
she was in Tully.
Go back and see her Black Mirror episode if you haven't. San Junipero. It's like one of the 2 Black Mirror episodes I've ever seen, but it's really good.
I've never seen Black Mirror.
Yeah. Oh, you should watch it.
More TV I've missed in my life.
Yeah, but it's like a Twilight Zone like anthology, so you can pick up any of them. Yeah, they all stand alone.
You can hop in.
One of the things that I was a little bummed out about this was the way this new Terminator works, and it's so much like the T-1000 that a little bit of it, it's like, oh, it's a T-1000, but he's got a little like friend. He's got a sidekick. The challenge has been, I think, and that comes up with some of the other movies too. The challenge has been a little bit of like after the T-1000, like where do you go from there? And I think
it was so high tech in its day,
and I think that they have struggled. The one in Terminator 3 was very kind of Cybertronic and almost looked like it came out of a later Michael Bay Transformers movie, but they didn't really use it that well. You had a bunch of robots in the Christian Bale one, and then you had, kind of the weird setup in Genesis, nanotechnology. And the thing is, like, even the nanotechnology, like, it all starts to kind of, again, look like the T-1000, and there's not much new there. And it kind of, a little bit of it, it's like, well, yeah, they beat that before, right? I mean, that was one of the big quantum leaps of the second movie, was like, oh, you thought this first Terminator was badass? Well, he's going to struggle to protect against this new one.
The next one's going to live in the cloud.
Yeah, exactly.
You can hang on to all your sex tapes that you don't want anybody seeing. But it is the same as the T-1000. Remember sex tape?
Yes.
That's what that was a joke about. Not that I have any myself. I don't. But the T-1000 was silver, and this one's black.
Okay.
That's like basically the same thing.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. In that, like, you blast a hole in his head and it heals up within seconds.
Right.
It's the same thing, but just like even more indestructible.
Right. And has a skeleton.
And
they can fly a helicopter.
I do like the fact that they have managed to work in Hispanic characters, including the new Terminator and the new, object of the Terminator's wrath, in a way that feels organic. Because we always talk about, like, the erasure of people of color in mainstream cinema when they make up so much of the audience of mainstream cinema. And it's like, not every film that is about POC characters. I mean, yes, there are angles and analyses of this film in which you can talk about why they're there and why they matter. But from a strictly, like, just filmmaking standpoint, yeah, just have them there. Like, they can just be there. This is a movie about killer robots. Like, let's not split hairs about, who they'd be coming after or whatever.
We have more Spanish in this one than just Hasta la Vista, baby.
Exactly.
So what are your numbers then? I'm saying 5.9.
I said 6.8. Like I said, I had a great time watching it. It's the after where it sort of just turned into dust for me, but during, I had a blast.
I had a good time at this. I thought the action's good, and the story's kind of clunky, but that was I didn't really expect any. I mean, I think my expectations based on the last three were so low that this one was like, oh, okay, that's kind of fun. So I give it a 7.5. More points than Alonso because I had a great opportunity to make him groan like crazy with one of my better mid-movie dad jokes.
Oh no!
So,
can you tell it here, or will it be a spoiler?
There was a scene where it's like you get to see something. I'm just like, oh damn, and it was awesome.
Oh, I get it now.
Exactly.
By the way, self-correction. This movie is not written by the people who did Deadpool. It's directed by the guy who did
the first Deadpool.
Sorry about that.
So our numbers are
Don't tweet me.
6.7, and it's 69% on the tomato meter.
Nice. Sorry, someone had to do it. Okay, thanks for listening. Wow, like this video, won't you? And subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. Follow us on social media at BeFastAllDay, and do visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We have extra goodies for our subscribers. We do reviews of old movies. We talk about trailers. We do the TV recaps that you've come to love. We're right now watching HBO's Watchmen.
Who watches The Watchmen? We do.
We do. And so there's a lot going on over there. So patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. Drop by. If you already have subscribed, thank you for that. We super appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.